Welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. I'm Amy Shannon, but you can call me Amy. Thank you for listening. Hello and welcome, and I hope all is well with you. I'm Amy, and today I'm talking about the Little House on the Prairie books. Well, more like Laura Ingalls Wilder. If you're familiar with the television series that ran from 74 to 83, Little House on the Prairie, it was inspired by the books, and some of the characters that are in the actual books that Laura Ingalls Wilder wrote were put into the television series. It's basically, there's a lot of things that about the series that aren't in the books, or they're inspired by it. I do know that the producer and the creator of the television series was inspired by the books because his daughter and his wife read them and had him read them, and then he was inspired to create a show which was very successful. Laura Ingalls Wilder was born in 1867, and she died in 1957 at the age of 90. Her parents were Charles and Caroline, and they lived in what they called the big woods of Wisconsin, which was kind of close to this village called Pepin, Wisconsin. And she was the second of 5 children. Her older sister Mary, and then she had a younger sister Carrie, a brother Charles who died as a baby, and then they had Grace. And in the series, the television series, that you can see that the Ingalls family, obviously it grew, but they did stay true to the family's names and the number of children, though they did not account for the other children that were adopted. And of course, in the series where Mary became blind, and that is true, but she never married. So her, her character on the show married a man she met when she attended a blind school, and then they had a child who died, but Mary never got married and never had children. It is said that the Ingalls were a descendant of the Delano family, which actually is also an ancestral family of President Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt. So they found that it was pretty interesting of her life. But what I like is, when I was a child, my mother read me the Little House books, and then I read them. And I remember years ago, I have this box set. My son, Robert, was in elementary school, and he came home where they had, where you could order the Scholastic books, through like the school. They could, pick out the ones, and I saw the box set, and I'm like, oh, I haven't read that in so long. So I put it in so Robert could buy it, and he could pick out some other books that he liked. And he was so excited that I picked out books for myself to read. He thought that was, pretty cool. And he was telling everybody when the books came that he couldn't wait to give them to his mom. And I must say, when I sat down in the evening when everybody was asleep, and I read I went through the books, and I just read them cover to cover each night. And I was also at a point in my life that I was trying to figure out that I felt something missing. A part of myself was like, I couldn't pinpoint it. And then I realized that it had been so long since I had really written anything. And I'm not talking about, I used to write tech manuals for my jobs and things like that. But it had been so long since I had written something. So after reading it, I'm like, I'm going to try. I'm going to sit down and sit down behind my computer. And this is 2004, so computers are not now aren't what they used to be. So I started writing what I thought was going to be a short story, and ended up being my first full-length novel. And as they say, that's kind of like history. But it was reading these books that got me back onto writing. And it wasn't just short stories. I was writing more. I created wonderful characters that I was so proud of. And it was just a huge inspiration for me. And I was looking at these books sitting on my shelf when I've been going through. I wish I had the room to have so many books. I am selling books that I have read a few times and probably won't get to read again. I'm putting them on eBay, and then the proceeds are going to go back into Amy's Bookshelf Reviews. So the link to my eBay website is on my Amy's Bookshelf Reviews website. Right now it's like a pop-up. So so there are several books in what they call the Little House series. I just finished reading the first one in the series, Little House in the Big Woods, and I moved on to Little House on the Prairie. And it just kind of brought me back to, wow, can you imagine living this way? And then I was thinking about, well, you don't know what you're missing if you've never had something. And that's something I always thought, back then there's no such thing as television. But what I found was interesting is that a lot of stuff that I read about on what they did, on their farm, and how they used every piece of everything they had. If they hunted, they used every piece of that animal. They had to salt and store food so they would have it for the winter. So they needed to know how to do that, but they didn't have refrigeration. So they used salt cured and smoked meats and things like that. And as I'm reading, I'm remembering some of the stories my grandmother told me. She grew up on a farm, but she was on a farm in the 1920s and 1930s, and the work that they had to do, what her father did. Her father had a full-time job, and he had to work the farm. Her mother had all the children, and she still had to work the farm, and there was a lot. They didn't waste anything, and I found that was so interesting. And even though this, like the stories in the book are, what are basically Laura's remembrances of what she was doing, and it's written in a way that children can understand, and also it's something that adults, if you're familiar with, would be interested in reading. I mean, if you think about history, or, how people create things. Now we call it sustainability. But it was there was this part, and I was reading this part about when they were smoking some wheat, or some deer meat. So this is early on in the story, but it kind of gets you. This is coming from Little House in the Big Woods. Pa skinned the deer carefully and salted and stretched the hides, for he would make soft leather of them. Then he cut up the meat and sprinkled salt over the pieces as he laid them on a board. Standing on end in the yard was a tall length cut from the trunk of a big hollow tree. Pa had driven nails inside as far as he could reach from each end. Then he stood it up, put a little roof over the top, and he cut a little door on one side near the bottom. On the piece that he cut out, he fastened leather hinges and then fitted it into place, and that was a little door with the bark still on it. After the deer meat had been salted several days, Pa cut a hole near the end of each piece and put a string through it. Laura watched him do this, and she watched him hang the meat on the nails in the hollow log. He reached up through the little door and hung meat on the nails as far as he could reach. Then he put a ladder against the log, climbed up to the top, and moved the roof to one side, and reached down inside to hang meat on those nails. Then Pa put the roof back on again, climbed on the ladder, and said to Laura, "Run over to the chopping block and fetch me some of those green hickory chips, new, clean, white ones." So Laura ran to the block where Pa chopped wood. She filled her apron with her fresh, sweet-smelling chips. Just inside the little door in the hollow log, Pa built a fire of tiny bits of bark and moss, and he laid some of the chips on it very carefully. Instead of burning quickly, the green chips smoldered, and filled the hollow log with thick, choking smoke. Pa shut the door, and the little smoke squeezed through the crack around it. A little smoke came out through the roof, but most of it was shut in with the meat. "There's nothing better than good hickory smoke," Pa said. "That'll make good venison that will keep anywhere in any weather." So that is just one part of the great stories, the real life experiences of Laura Ingalls Wilder and her family. It's pretty amazing. When you think back on, especially when things are true, and I can't wait to continue reading the rest of the books in the series. And then years ago, my father had bought me 3 other books that are about her life, different authors, I think, and I look forward to reading those. They've actually been sitting on my shelf for quite a while because I've been reading other people's work. But I'm now taking the time. I'm scheduling my time wisely, and still reading your work first, and then I'm reading for myself. You never know when I won't be able to do that anymore. So I hope that this gives you, some insight, and maybe it'll make you want to pick up the collection. I know that, the books are still out there. You can get them on Amazon, or find them in a thrift store or whatever. Like I said, I have the book set, and I am on to Little House on the Prairie. And not the show, but I do actually own the entire DVD set of Little House on the Prairie. So probably after I read all these books, I'll probably want to watch those as well. I am a big fan of thinking about old TV shows that I absolutely loved and could watch over and over and over again. So I have quite the television series DVD collection, and am always looking for more that inspired me or I just love. Back when I was watching TV, regular TV, and had 4 channels, and if they showed more than one episode in a row, it was called a marathon. Now it's binge watching. But anyways, I digress, and I hope that you enjoy this. If you're a Laura Ingalls fan, let me know. If you're a TV DVDs collector, let me know. I'd love to hear that too. I like to connect with anyone who is interested in anything that I have discussed or will be discussing. We also I have poetry corners coming up. That's a new feature on this podcast. I know I do a lot of talking and sharing, and I think that's really important. I want my voice to reach out to people so they know who I am. I don't edit this. If I stutter or lose a thought, I don't edit it. This is me being me and reading it. I plan what I'm going to talk about, but I don't edit it. So anyways, if you're an author who wants your book to be on the show, go to amysbookshelfreviews.com/podcast for more information. If you're an author and you want your book to be reviewed, go to amysbookshelfreviews.com for more information. And please feel free to subscribe to my website where you will get all the great email campaigns and blog posts about authors, their books, and my recommendations. You might be just as lucky as I am to find that hidden gem that keeps you reading work of your new favorite author. Be well and be safe. Thank you, and talk to you next week. This has been Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. Thank you for listening. And always, be kind and stay safe. Thank you.